Hello, the internet. My name's Laura, and welcome back to my channel. Today is another episode of Grow a Green Thumb, where we're going to be talking about the different types of water. Alright, yes, you heard me right. We are talking about different types of water. This comes up a lot for plants in that some water is better than other water for plants. You look at water and you're like, it's water. It's wet, it just is, right? But the thing that sometimes you don't think about is the fact that it has different minerals, different things in it depending on where it came from. So we're going to talk about what those different things are, the different places that you get water from that you can use on your house plants, and why you might use one source over another. So the first place that most people get their water for watering their houseplants from is from their tap. If you live in a house or an apartment or some sort of a building, you likely have running water. That water can come from one of two places. You're either getting your water from your city or your local area, like a water reservoir where it goes through some sort of process where it takes bad stuff out, puts some other stuff in, and then eventually it gets to your house and it comes through your tap and you have water. You can also have well water that is pumped up into your house, and so you basically dug a well somewhere on your property, you're drawing water from that, and then that water is coming into your house and you're using that as your water from your tap. So while many of you are like, okay, tap water, I got it, there's a couple of things you want to know about tap water, and one of those things is that the mineral content is going to be different depending on where you live. So if you live in a place where your water is, the groundwater is sitting in a lot of minerals or around a lot of minerals, and when it's pulled up it brings a lot of those minerals with it, you can have what's called hard water. Well, those minerals might not be toxic to us because obviously they wouldn't pour it into our homes if it was poisonous. Flint, Michigan notwithstanding, you're probably going to be okay, but your plants, the buildup of those heavy minerals in a plant can cause the edges of the leaves to crisp. It can cause that kind of damage and all that kind of stuff. If you have a water softener, I don't know a ton about that, but I know something about the minerals that go into it in order to soften water can also be a problem for plants. And if you have well water, then you're just getting the water that's coming straight up out of the ground. So if you've got those minerals, in your water, they're coming into your house, and you've got minerals in your water that can be harmful for your plants. So there's a couple of ways that you can kind of mitigate this. One of the things is you're just going to have to test. Tap water is the easiest, cheapest, most plentiful water source that you're going to have, because you can just turn on the tap and have it come in. If you've got some problems with hard water, heavy water, I've got 3 suggestions for things that you can do. Number 1, you can leave the water out for 24 hours. That lets some of the chlorine and that kind of thing, I don't know the exact chemical process that happens, but it'll neutralize the chlorine. That's for if you don't have lots of heavy metals or anything in there, because obviously those aren't going to do anything. But if you've ever heard leave your water before you put it into a fish tank out for 24 hours, that's basically what that is. One of the other things that you can do, number 1, if you don't have that kind of time or you just don't want to have that kind of time, you can use tap water conditioner for fish tanks. This dechlorinates water, and it also detoxifies some of the heavy metals. And so you pour out a certain number of gallons, you put a certain amount of this into it, you stir it up, and you've got water that you can use. And you can also use some sort of filter, like a water filter, like Brita filter, though obviously that is not the only brand that exists. That is just the most popular one. And you can run your water through that, and that will pull out a lot of the stuff. Whether or not that's going to pull out all of the minerals that would be harmful to your plants, I don't know. I'm not going that much into it. You're just going to have to test and see whether or not your plants do okay with the water that you have. more than likely, doing one of these three things, you're either going to have tap water that you can just use automatically, or one of these three things is going to make it good enough for your plants. If you've got, like, if you are aware of some problems with your water, you know, like it's too hard or it tastes funny or that kind of thing, then you might have problems with your plants. But for the most part, you're probably okay with tap water. One of the other ways that you get water is capturing rainwater. So water falls from the sky. We're all aware water falls from the sky. You can collect that in containers and then store that and use that to water your plants. I do that not for all of my plants. I have some specific plants that particularly like that sort of thing, and some that really can't live without it. My calatheas and my carnivorous plants are both plants that I water exclusively with rainwater. So far, I have been able to collect enough that I haven't had any problems with that. But rainwater, obviously, because water evaporates, it goes up, it forms clouds. There's chemistry involved, and then it, you know, comes back down. It doesn't pull up any of the heavy metals. It does, however, absorb nitrogen from the air, which is good for plants. It's one of the things that you would find in fertilizer. And so rainwater is generally like the best thing that you can water your plants with. It's also a hassle because you have to collect it, and I'm not sure, for people who live in like cities, very densely populated cities, I don't know about pollution problems with collecting rainwater. That's not something that I have any experience with. Again, you would just kind of have to test and see whether or not your plants are okay with rainwater in your area if you happen to have a lot of pollution around. For people who live out in the wherever, you know, your rainwater's more than likely going to be great. Okay, so for you, those of you who wanted to get into collecting water, I wanted to show you, it doesn't have to be super fancy. This is what I do. Literally, I have these two containers that sit out here, and they collect water. These have been sitting out here for a couple of days. If you get it right after it rains, the water is a lot more clear, but basically it's just like an algae or something growing in there, and so far I haven't had it hurt anything. If you're in the summer, obviously you can get mosquito larvae in there, which is the reason why I have a little funnel, and I put cheesecloth over it. Cheesecloth, so that I could pour in there and it will get any little debris and any little larvae out of there. And then I store these in old milk containers that are obviously closed, and I store them in the dark, so that the algae dies and any mosquito little buggies that might or might not be in there die. And then obviously you can just use the water for whatever you need to. If you have a bigger funnel, obviously it will work a little bit better. I also have an old pitcher that I use to scoop out the water from the containers, because trying to pick those up and pour them in is not fun. Don't do that. So it's really, really easy. I just put my funnel in my guy here, and then I scoop up the water and pour the water into here. Usually I do it with two hands, obviously. I'm filming right now, so I'm holding the camera with one hand, but I can steady it with my other hand. And then I just do that until my bottles are full. Okay, and out of that I got 3 gallons. And I didn't even use all of it. Obviously there's still that much water in there. So you can get a decent amount. This was all from just one rain, really. So there you go. It's not hard. This is just the container I got from Lowe's. It's nothing fancy. It's just a plastic container, and I always like wash it out, you know, to get any of the algae and gunkies out of there before, you know, before it's going to rain again. But I've got so much water now that I'm probably just going to take these back inside for a little bit But yeah, so there you go. Collecting your own rainwater. It is very easy. One of the other places that you can get water from is if you keep plants. Sometimes keeping plants and keeping fish kind of go hand in hand a little bit. So if you have a fish tank or a fish pond where you have fish swimming around and pooping, you can take that water, and that water, obviously if the fish are growing in there and being alive, and any plants that you might have like growing in your fish tank, you pull that water out and use that to water your plants. Obviously this is for freshwater aquariums only. You don't ever want to put any salt in your plants. That is a bad. No salt. But if you've got a regular freshwater aquarium or like a pond, even outside a pond where you keep like koi fish or something like that, that water, it has the extra nitrogen in there because of fish waste. So that can be a good thing. If you've got if you've got a big enough tank that, you know, when you're doing your normal water changes, you can do that, then go for it. It's great. And then the last way that you can get water, if you can't do any of these others, for some reason your tap water isn't good, you've run out of rainwater, you don't have a fish tank, distilled water from the grocery store where you buy it in the gallon jugs and it's distilled water, that doesn't have anything in it. It's basically just water. So it's not going to have anything that acts as a fertilizer, but it's also not going to have anything that's going to harm your plants in any way. If you just need water and it's a specific plant that needs water that doesn't have anything in it, distilled water is going to work for you. Problem with that, obviously, is that you have to buy it. It's not as expensive as drinking water, which, truthfully, I assume drinking water would, bottled drinking water would be fine too, but that's so expensive that I would not suggest doing that. Distilled water, if you're going to go and buy water, then distilled water is fine, and that's much cheaper per gallon. But anyway, so distilled water will be fine. I have used that for my carnivorous plants before before I've been able to collect rainwater, and obviously that works fine. Okay, so I talked about, you want to test your rainwater and see if your plants are doing fine on that. The way that you would test your plants is obviously you have to water them with it. And then if a plant is not liking a certain type of water because there's too many heavy minerals in it, what it basically will end up doing is it will end up crisping around the edges. An example of what this looks like is on these leaves. These are the younger leaves that it had before I got the plant. But it will start browning and yellowing on the edges of the leaves, usually like this. And what that is it's caused by the mineral deposits building up in the edges of the leaves. So if you start seeing crisping like that, and it's not a humidity problem, because humidity can also cause that same problem, that is a way that you can know that your water might have some harmful minerals in it that are affecting your plants. If you have harmful minerals in carnivorous type plants are very special, so I'm just going to mention them because this is one of the things that I see the most often, is that people get carnivorous plants and then they water them with regular tap water, and that doesn't work. Don't do that. Carnivorous plants want as pure water as you can give them. If you give them tap water, if you give them anything with like minerals or fertilizer in it either, the plant will basically do very poorly and or die. Usually it will shrivel up. They just don't want any minerals or anything in their water. Exclusively rainwater, distilled water. I would hazard not even filtered tap water. Though I haven't ever actually tried that. You can give it a shot, but, I'm just putting that as a side because carnivorous plants are a special case. I'm probably going to do a video on that completely later on because I just see so many people who are like, oh, carnivorous plants, they're so cute, what should I do? And they're just so different from every other type of plant that you can get. Like, you can't put them in... They're just so different from any other type of plant that you can get. So that is the basic rundown on water. so that you kind of have an idea of what the different types of water are, what the different types of water are that you can try for your plants. And then obviously if you start getting a crisping on the edges of your plants, one of the things that you can look into is whether or not you've got too many hard minerals in your water. Like I said, it can also be a humidity thing. Unfortunately, a lot of symptoms in plants can be multiple things, and you just kind of have to rule one out before you can definitely blame another. But it is a thing to watch out for. So hopefully that will give you at least a bit to get started on that so that you can water with a bit more confidence. So the specific types of plants that you need to be careful of and probably go ahead and water with rainwater just from the get-go are Calathea, Stromamps, and carnivorous plants. Those, in general, those species just don't do well with tap water. They do well with rainwater. There are exceptions, this is not gospel, but for the most part, if you have those, just go ahead and do rainwater if that is at all possible. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of just clarity about the different types of water, what you want to keep an eye out for, what you want to try with your plants. Like I said, for the most part, tap water is going to be fine, except for those specific species that I mentioned. If you start having problems, though, water is one of the things that you can look into that might be a problem. But obviously, the more that you know about different types of things, the more successful you're going to be in keeping plants in general. Remember that good decisions come from experience, and experience comes from bad decisions. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to kill plants, it's going to happen, but you don't want to let that discourage you, because the more that you learn, the more that you keep plants and see what happens with them and lose plants or save plants or whatever, the more knowledge you're going to have in order to take care of those slightly more difficult or rare plants that you might have your eye on. Alright, so if you like this video, go ahead and like this video. Any questions or comments or concerns that I didn't cover or wasn't too clear on, go ahead and leave those questions in the comments and I will do my best to answer those for you. If you'd like to see more of these videos, I have plans for more of them. And so go ahead and subscribe so that you can see those. And thank you very much for spending some of your time with me today. I will see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye-bye.